Character Power, Chapter 8, The Moral Qualities. The sixth of the several classes of character qualities is that known as the moral qualities. The term moral means relating to duty or obligation, pertaining to those intentions and actions of which right and wrong, virtue and vice are predicated. The several general qualities composing that class are shown in the diagram. You are now asked to consider each of the above stated qualities composing the class of the moral qualities. Veracity. Veracity means the state or quality of being observant of truth, truthful, veracious, and fair, straightforward, and honest in expression. Its essence is honesty and truthfulness. Honesty and truthfulness constitute the basic foundation upon which the structure of human intercourse rests. In all dealings between man and man, there must always be the tacit assumption of the existence of honesty, of purpose, and truthfulness of statement, else there can be no confidence and faith manifested between individuals. And without confidence and faith, there could be no trust. All normal schools of morality and ethics postulate honesty and truthfulness as positive virtues, the fundamental positive virtues, in fact. Their negatives are always regarded as vices. The man who has gained the reputation of being honest and truthful has secured a valuable asset. The one who has acquired the opposite kind of reputation has taken on a heavy liability. The man whose word is as good as his bond possesses a valuable capital of character. That honesty is the best policy is proverbial. Being on the level and on the square certainly is being stronger, better, and more efficient, being positive, in fact. In spite of apparent indications to the contrary, which may present themselves from time to time in our experience, the wisdom of the race reports that in the long run, and in many of the short runs as well, honesty and truthfulness wins out. The individual who would seriously preach the contrary and who would advocate the pursuit of the opposite policy, quite properly would be condemned and denounced as a false prophet, a dangerous guide, and an enemy to society. The deficiency negative of veracity is known as untruthfulness, which is marked by an absence of the essential characteristics of the positive quality. Its spirit is dishonesty in thought and expression. It is expressed in the desire and tendency to lie, equivocate, testify falsely, bear false witness, mislead, deceive. This usually accompanied by the tendency to cheat, defraud, and betray confidence. The dishonest man and the liar, usually represented by the same individual, are quite properly objects of scorn and condemnation on the part of right-thinking people. The manifestation of such qualities serves to undermine the structure of society and to destroy the floors of mutual dealings between man and man. For these rest primarily upon the foundations of confidence, faith, and trust. Dishonesty and untruthfulness are negative qualities tending to render anyone weaker, worse, and less efficient. The excess negative of veracity is known as morbid candor. This consists of what has been called ingrown conscientiousness, or an abnormal and morbid exaggeration of the requirements of veracity, and a more or less developed feeling that it is the bounden duty of every person to tell the whole truth, or rather what he interprets to be this, in and out of season and without sense or reason. It is generally found that such persons' conception of the whole truth almost always is that of unpleasant fact assumed to be the truth. They fail to feel the sense of duty impelling them to tell the whole truth when it happens to be pleasant. In fact, they seem to have a mental blind spot for pleasant truths. Their characteristic self-justification is that, I think it is my duty to tell you the truth about yourself and your actions, or those of someone near and dear to the person to whom the truth is told. Likewise, they are disposed to spread gossip and scandal under cover of this perverted sense of truthfulness and candor. They would rather tell an unpleasant truth than to eat a good meal. They make a virtue of their inclinations and desire to wound and to humiliate others. They make odious the virtue of truth by reason of their exaggerations and perverted judgments and feelings. They are not content with what they style calling a spade. They call it a dirty old shovel. They are really quite one-sided. They do not tell the whole truth at all. They tell only the unpleasant and disagreeable parts of the facts of the case, only that which appeals to their perverted tastes. Like the scavenger birds, they scent only carrion, only that upon which their depraved thought feeds. This perverted quality is decidedly negative. It makes one weaker, worse, and less efficient, and also a nuisance. Equity. Equity consists of the desire and tendency to observe and comply with the rules of justice and fairness, and to give to each man his due, while exacting from him his rightful due. In the proper terminology, equity consists of the desire to give everyone a square deal, and to expect everyone to act likewise. The synonyms of the term equity are right, justice, impartiality, rectitude, fairness, honesty, uprightness. Its spirit is equality of treatment and justice, the meaning of the latter being the rendering to everyone of that which is his due, and the impartial judgment of one's conduct or motives. Grotius, the old Dutch jurist, summed up man's duty to man in the following adage, the words of which are worthy of being inscribed in letters of gold over the doors of every public institution. You will do well to commit them to memory. The adage runs, wrong no man and render unto every man his due. Equity is a positive quality and renders you stronger, better, and more efficient. The deficiency negative of equity is known as inequity, which is marked by a lack of desire for fairness, justice, and equity. It tends toward an easy invasion and violation of the rights of others, and toward general unfairness, dishonesty, and lack of squareness in dealings with others, and toward at least a tacit approval of such behavior on the part of others. It is a negative element of character, and its results, in the long run, are injurious to the individual ruled by it. The excess negative of equity is known as censoriousness, or the tendency to censure unduly either oneself or others because of the failure to observe the formal requirements of justice, custom, or law, the letter of the law being exalted while the spirit is lost sight of. When one is unduly censorious of oneself, he is disposed to indulge in self-condemnation and self-reproach concerning matters of formal observance. When he is unduly censorious of others, he becomes intolerant, persecuting, condemnatory, and overcritical of their formal actions. Rabid reformers, self-constituted censors of the general public, and others of this general kind have this negative quality highly developed. They may be cured by adding a liberal blend of the elements of reason, judgment, discrimination, tolerance, charity, sympathy, and understanding of human nature, with a sufficient quantity of the element of humor. Kindliness. Kindliness consists of the manifestation of a humane, sympathetic, benevolent, kind, tolerant, charitable, and helpful mental attitude toward others, inspired by affection, fellow feeling, and goodwill. It manifests in the direction of a sympathetic and kindly desire to make others happy and prosperous. It expresses the spirit of benevolence, generosity, and philanthropy. It is regarded as a positive virtue by all schools of ethics, and all practical philosophers consider it a positive character quality. In the long run, it tends to make you stronger, better, and more efficient. Manifested normally, it draws to one the kindly sympathy and liking of others, and thus promotes his own well-being and happiness. The manifestation of the opposite quality tends to repel the kindly interest of others, and thus is negative in its effects. The deficiency negative of normal kindliness is known as lack of sympathy, and is marked by the absence of sympathy, tolerance, charity, fellow feeling, affection, or love, and by the lack of all inclination to help, aid, assist, or render kindly services to others. It is a repelling, deadening, negative character quality which should be inhibited by the cultivation of its positive opposite. The excess negative of normal kindliness is known as maudlin sympathy, which is marked by the presence of sickly sentimentality. It is a neurotic, hysterical, emotional state in which the feeling of love for one's fellows is reduced to a state of mushy gush and is manifested in a perverted display of morbid sympathy for and toward often quite unworthy objects. To many, the term brotherly love has lost its real and positive meaning by reason of the perverted and misdirected manifestations of so-called love and sympathy on the part of many persons of the type just indicated. The perverted excess negative should be cured by an addition of common sense and discrimination, a blending of head with heart, and a goodly portion of normal equity and justice with a dash of the ability to detect incongruity. Here, once more, the excess of a virtue becomes a vice. Loyalty. Loyalty consists of the state or quality of being loyal, i.e., of being faithful and true to principle or to those to whom one owes fidelity, truthfulness, and honest dealings. Loyalty is a staunch virtue and one upon which enduring human relations must be based. The man whose loyalty is beyond question, the man you can depend upon and who sticks by you to the end, is a real man. The reputation of possessing such character quality is a valuable asset to anyone. Not only is the reputation gained by the manifestation of this quality valuable and helpful, but the practice and manifestation of the quality itself is strengthening, invigorating, and backbone producing in its effect. It tends to make you stronger, better, and more efficient. The deficiency negative of loyalty is known as disloyalty, which is marked by faithlessness, treachery, desertion, perfidy, inconstancy, and general unreliability. Disloyalty is a despicable quality of character and is condemned by all men. It is negative in nature and in effects. It most decidedly tends to render one weaker, worse, and less efficient. The excess negative of loyalty is known as blind partisanship, which is marked by an unreasoning adherence to a person, party, or faction, an attachment based upon the fact of habit or prejudice rather than upon actual merit, quality, virtue, or truth. This is a state of loyalty gone to seed and having lost its essential spirit in life. It is a counterfeit of true loyalty and has no real meaning, in fact, or truth, yet it is a most common quality among mankind. It may be cured by the addition of logical thought, discrimination, and equity. Service. Service consists of the desire to perform the duty due to others and to manifest the proper and equitable labor or effort for those to whom it is owing. All men owe service to society, to their fellow man, to their dependents, and to those with whom they have dealings. The law of compensation exacts the performance of service. One must pay for what he gets, must pay in service. He must be willing to pay the price, to render compensation. The price of service received is service rendered or to be rendered. He who seeks to get everything and to render no equivalent service for it is a thief or a parasite. He is a slacker. The negation of the quality of service is weakening, degrading, demoralizing, and degenerating in its nature and its effects. Service, properly understood and equitably performed, is positive in nature and effects. It tends to render you stronger, better, and more efficient. The motto "Iktien," i.e., I serve, is rightfully understood, is a worthy one. The deficiency negative of service is known as refusal to serve and consists of the desire and tendency to shirk or to refuse rightful service and duty, to get without rendering an equivalent, to want to live on others or upon society in general without rendering compensating service. This is a negative quality and it renders one weaker, worse, and less efficient, without doubt. The excess negative of service is known as servility, which consists of the servile mental attitude, the slave spirit, and the actions arising therefrom. It is marked by slavishness, meanness of spirit, cringing, fawning, and often is accompanied by sycophancy, base flattery, and toadying. This perversion may be cured by a liberal addition of true egoism, self-respect, equity, etc. True service is distinguished by a blending of self-respect and equity and is the antithesis of servility. The latter is a base caricature of the positive quality and should never be mistaken for it. Temperance. Temperance consists of habitual moderation of the appetites and passions. It has for its motto, nothing too much. It seeks to maintain the golden mean by means of which one may use every fit thing at the right time, in the right place, and in the right manner, and yet never misuse nor abuse even the best thing. True temperance does not mean the total inhibition of the natural appetites, tastes, and passions, nor the total abstinence from the satisfaction of these. Rather does it mean their self-controlled restraint accompanied by the right to manifest them in moderation, lawfully, righteously, and morally under the control of the conscience, judgment, and will. Its essence is well-balanced moderation. That temperance is a positive character quality cannot be denied. It is perceived to make one stronger, better, and more efficient, and its negative opposite, i.e. intemperance, is seen to render one weaker, worse, and less efficient. The positive should be developed and cultivated. The negative should be inhibited. The deficiency negative of temperance is known as intemperance, which is marked by the absence of all the characteristics of temperance, and accordingly, by the tendency toward excessive, uncontrolled, unbridled indulgence of the appetites, tastes, and passions without regard to reason or right. Intemperance is a negative quality and should be overcome by the cultivation of its positive opposite. The excess negative of temperance is known as austerity, which consists of extreme and unreasonable severity, sternness, strictness, rigorousness regarding judging, living, and acting. The code of extreme, severe, and unreasonable self-denial of the appetites, tastes, and passions. The manifestation of the ideals of asceticism. Persons in whom this quality is well developed and active are inclined to regard practically all of the natural appetites, tastes, and passions as unworthy and depraved, and as therefore to be rigorously inhibited and repressed. This quality violates the spirit of true temperance, which is moderation in all things. It leads to intolerance, fanaticism, persecution, and general narrowness of heart and spirit. Chastity. Chastity is the quality or state of being chaste, i.e. pure, clean, virtuous, especially in the manner of sexual relations. Chastity is a positive quality, a positive virtue, approved of and encouraged by the best religious, moral, ethical, and common sense thought of civilized lands. It is held to promote the welfare of the race, the protection of society, and the well-being of the individual. Individuals, communities, and nations habitually and extensively violating the rule of chastity are pushed to the wall in the course of evolution, as all history informs us, and as all human experiences corroborates. Sexual cleanliness is not only a virtue for the individual and for society in general, it is also a necessity of ultimate well-being, success, and survival. Individual exceptions only serve to verify the general rule. Unchastity exacts a tremendous toll in the long run and on the average. Chastity is a positive quality. It makes you stronger, better, and more efficient. The deficiency negative of chastity is known as unchastity. It lacks every characteristic of the positive quality and is its antithetical opposite. It is marked by lewdness, lust, lasciviousness, lechery, profligacy, licentiousness, sensuality, wantonness, impunity, and viciousness. In its train follow practically all of the vices of mankind. It is vicious, harmful, and negative. It certainly makes one weaker, worse, and less efficient. The poet truthfully tells us that to be hated, it needs but to be seen, and likewise warns us against that familiarity which causes us to lose our first disgust and hatred for it. The excess negative of chastity is known as sexophobia, that abnormal, morbid state of mind and feeling that causes persons to think and feel that sex in itself is evil, impure, and lewd. This view is quite contrary to nature and to reason, and is not advanced by true morality, religion, or ethics. It is contrary to common sense as well. Sex has its rightful and proper place, an important place in nature. It has its important and worthy part to play in the life of natural things. Without it, life would perish. Its vice consists only in its abuse, its improper use, its unwarranted manifestation. Science informs us that this perverted, exaggerated hatred of sex and all that belongs to sex is not only unnatural, abnormal, and irrational, but that it is also in many cases actually pathological. Often, indeed, sex thus treated by individuals turns upon and devours them. Sex reviled takes its revenge upon the revilers. The pathology of sex reveals numerous cases of sexual perversions and abnormalities arising from this morbid thought and feeling toward the principle of sex in itself. True chastity dwells in the light. The perverted form seeks and dwells in the darkness. Many so-called advocates of sexual purity, defined in the terms of sexophobia, are really prurient prudes. Their thoughts are unclean and fungus-like growths. They lack the purifying rays of the sun. Chastity must not be confounded with or mistaken for this base counterfeit, this miserable wolf wearing the skin of the sheep. This perversion, like all other excess negatives, is decidedly negative in nature and its effects. It tends to make one weaker, worse, and less efficient. It is doubly dangerous because it seeks refuge in the temple of chastity and often wears the garb of the priests of that temple. This may seem like strong language, but it is warranted by the facts of the case, which are known to all earnest investigators of the subject.